Zelensky wants to make a deal, and I also feel that I know that President Putin wants to make a deal. I wanted to know that before I began any detailed discussions. But the meeting and the conversation, also the meeting with Steve Witkoff in Moscow was a very successful one. And my phone call with him was a very successful one. Please.
ऐसा है कि आपने एलोन मस्क के लिए पूछा है। देखिए, मेरा उनका बहुत पुराना परिचय रहा है। मैं प्रधानमंत्री भी नहीं था जब मैं मुख्यमंत्री था, तब से मेरा उनका परिचय है। और आज वो एक पूरे परिवार के साथ, बच्चों के साथ मिलने के लिए आए थे और स्वाभाविक है कि एक पारिवारिक वातावरण में उनके साथ मेरी गपगोष्ठी हुई है। जहां तक डील का सवाल है, आपने जो प्रश्न पूछा है, मैं समझता हूं पूरी दुनिया में डील शब्द का कॉपीराइट एक ही व्यक्ति का है और उस व्यक्ति का नाम है ट्रम्प।
That was very nice. Yeah, go ahead, please.
Thank you, Mr. President. Can I ask whether you discussed at all today the case of Gautam Adani, who's one of the wealthiest men in Asia and perceived as an ally of Prime Minister Modi? Prime Minister Modi, have you asked the President to take action on that case? Thank you.
पहली बात है, भारत एक लोकतांत्रिक देश है और हमारे संस्कार, हमारी संस्कृति वसुधैव कुटुंबकम की है। हम पूरे विश्व को अपना एक परिवार मानते हैं। हर भारतीय को मैं अपना मानता हूं। दूसरी बात है, ऐसे व्यक्तिगत मामलों के लिए दो देश के मुखिया न मिलते हैं, न बैठते हैं, न बात करते हैं।
Go ahead, please. Yeah, please. Sir, go ahead, please.
Yes. Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Mr. Prime Minister. I have a question for you as well. But, Mr. President, you have suggested, with regards to the Russia-Ukraine war, you've suggested several things that Ukraine should give up. The idea of NATO membership, territory that was seized back in 2014 by Russia. What should Russia give up?
Russia has gotten themselves into something that I think they wish they didn't. If I were president, it would not have happened. Absolutely would not have happened. And it didn't happen for 4 years. If you look at what has taken place under President Bush, they lost a lot. Under President Obama, they lost Crimea. Under Biden, it looks like they could lose the whole thing. Under Trump, they lost nothing. Ukraine lost nothing. They didn't give up anything. And you take a look at the other three presidents surrounding me, they gave up a lot. I think that when you look at Ukraine and when you look at the mess that they're in, it's got to be ended and it's got to be stopped. Now, Russia's taken over a pretty big chunk of territory, and they also have said from day one, long before President Putin, they've said they cannot have Ukraine be in NATO. They said that very strongly. I actually think that that was the thing that caused the start of the war. And Biden said it, and Zelensky said it, and I think that was one of the reasons, one of the starts of the war. But from long before Putin, they said you cannot have Ukraine going in any way into NATO. And I start from that standpoint. I think everybody knew that. Now, if a better deal can be negotiated, if they are able to make a deal where they can do that, that's fine with me. I really don't care. I want that bloodshed to stop. I don't want to see, we have an ocean between us and the site we're talking about, the site of death. We're calling it the fields of death. We have a big ocean in between us. This is more important for Europe. We shouldn't be in. They have to equalize, and they're going to have to do it fast, but they have to equalize. But as far as the negotiation, it's too early to say what's going to happen. Maybe Russia will give up a lot. Maybe they won't. And it's all dependent on what is going to happen. The negotiation really hasn't started. But I will say, as far as NATO is concerned, from many years before President Putin, I will tell you that I've heard that Russia would never accept that. And I think Ukraine knew that because Ukraine wasn't in and never requested to be in until more recently. So that's the way it is. And I think that's the way it's going to have to be. Go ahead, please. All right, go ahead, please, with the tie. With the tie, yeah.
Mr. President,
Yes, go ahead, please.
this is Saurabh Shukla from News Mobile. Mr. President, you spoke about Prime Minister Modi as a tough negotiator. Who was a tougher negotiator today, and who has a better negotiating tactic when it comes to tariffs?
Oh, he's a much tougher negotiator than me, and he's a much better negotiator than me. There's not even a contest. Okay? Yeah, go ahead, please. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Reena Bhardwaj from ANI. How do you see this relationship between India and the United States to counter China? And what is your vision when it comes to India, brokering peace in the Ukraine and Russia conflict?
Well, I think we're going to have a very good relationship with China. I got along with President Xi very well until COVID. That was a bridge too far. But until then, I got along with President Xi very, very well. We were very close as leaders go. I don't want to be naive, but as leaders go, I think we were very close. And I think that China is a very important player in the world. I think they can help us get this war over with Ukraine and Russia. And I look at India, I do see the skirmishes on the border, which are quite vicious, and I guess they continue to go on. If I could be of help, I'd love to help, because that should be stopped. That's been going on for a long time, and it's quite violent. It's quite violent, but I would hope that China and India and Russia and U.S. and all of us can get along. It's very important. The power of weaponry today is, and not only nuclear, but nuclear in particular, the power of weaponry is very important. I said before that I had very constructive talks in my first term with President Putin about the denuclearization of the two countries, and then we were going to go to China after we worked some kind of a deal. And we, at the confines of a deal, he really wanted to do it, so did I, denuclearize. And it's such a beautiful term when you think about it. In other words, to bring it down, because the power of those weapons is too great. And I did speak to President Xi about that, and I was getting also a very good response. He's building a very strong nuclear power. He's not very close to Russia or the United States right now, but he will be soon. I mean, he'll catch up over the period of 4 or 5 years, they say. But it would be a great thing if we could, on a military basis. We're going to spend this year $915 billion on military. Russia, without the war, was spending close to 100, but with the war, I can't tell you what they're spending, but they're spending a lot. And China is spending $400 and $450 billion. We're over $900 billion. And I said, it doesn't really make sense, does it? We're spending the money against each other, and we could spend that money for better purpose if we got along. And I'll tell you, I think that something like that will happen. First, when I left, as you know, 4 years ago, we didn't have Israel and the Middle East. We didn't have October 7th, a disaster, the disaster. Nothing was happening. Iran was not going to do anything, because Iran did not have much money at that point. They were broke. They were totally broke. They didn't have money for Hamas or for Hezbollah. And you didn't have Russia with Ukraine, and that would never have happened. But now I come back, and the whole world is on fire, so I have to put out the fires. But after I put out the fires, I'm going to meet with China, and I'm going to meet with Russia, and we're going to see if we can de-escalate it. We can bring it down military, especially as it pertains to nuclear. Please.
अगर आप माइक लेकर के कुछ बात करें तो
प्रधानमंत्री जी, आप इंडिया का रोल कैसे देखते हैं? आपने बातचीत की है प्रेसिडेंट ट्रम्प से टू डी एस्केलेट द कॉन्फ्लिक्ट इन रशिया एंड यूक्रेन.
आप जानते हैं, मैं रशिया और यूक्रेन दोनों से लगातार संपर्क में रहा हूं. मैं स्वयं भी दोनों देश की मुलाकात कर चुका हूं. बहुत से लोगों का एक भ्रम है कि भारत न्यूट्रल है. मैं साफ करना चाहता हूं, भारत न्यूट्रल नहीं है. हमारा अपना एक पक्ष है, और हमारा पक्ष है शांति, पीस। और मैंने इसी एक हमारे सिद्धांत को लेकर के राष्ट्रपति पुतिन की हाजिरी में मीडिया के सामने स्पष्ट रूप से कहा था कि युद्ध का समय नहीं है। और आज भी मेरा कन्विक्शन है कि युद्ध के मैदान में समस्याओं के समाधान नहीं निकलते हैं, अल्टीमेटली वार्ता के टेबल पर ही होते हैं। और भारत का लगातार प्रयास रहा है कि दोनों लोग जिसमें मौजूद हो वैसे फोरम में बातचीत होगी, तब कोई रास्ता निकलेगा। राष्ट्रपति ट्रंप जो प्रयास कर रहे हैं, मैं उनका स्वागत करता हूं, समर्थन करता हूं, और मैं चाहता हूं कि राष्ट्रपति ट्रंप हो सके उतना जल्दी सफल हो, ताकि दुनिया में शांति के रास्ते खुले।
Everybody, thank you very much. Thank you very much. And I very much appreciate the Prime Minister visiting our great country, and I do really appreciate it. We have so much in common, and all we want to do is have peace, and we want to have strength, and we want to have lots of different things together. But the relationship with India and with the Prime Minister has never been better. Thank you very much.
All right, so the picture is clear. It has been a successful bilateral between India and the United States. Lots of good words, a lot of direction to this entire relationship between the two countries. A mechanism of fairness is how Donald Trump put the reciprocal tariffs. He also spoke about economic corridor. Prime Minister Modi is speaking about defense framework. He's speaking about make India great again, essentially borrowing from MAGA, which is Make America Great Again. Matt Klink, Republican strategist, joins us. We have Raymond Vickery, former U.S. Assistant Secretary of Commerce, and Dr. Richard Benkin is a commentator who joins us this morning. Matt Klink, beginning with you, as someone who watches and observes, President Trump, he has had 3 meetings in the sense of world leaders. With Israeli, with Japanese, and also with the Jordanian king. Now with Prime Minister Narendra Modi, if you were to make a comparative assessment of how the two leaders' chemistry has been, what will you be saying?
Well, I think all 4 meetings have gone well, but I think that there is a definite and strong chemistry between Prime Minister Modi and Donald Trump. I think that Donald Trump, who professes to be a man who wants peace, realizes the increasingly strategic importance that India plays in your part of the world. We have a strong relationship with India. The United States is India's largest trading partner. However, we do run a $45 billion trade deficit with India, and I think that through some of the things that Mr. Modi said, that hopefully that will be corrected by India buying more of America's goods, in particular, hopefully more energy and maybe some fighter jets. But again, the United States knows that India is increasingly strategically important. It's the world's largest democracy. And I think you saw here that clearly President Trump is very, very comfortable with the Prime Minister. And I think that I wouldn't be surprised if he goes to India at some point over the next 4 years. I know the invitation was extended today.
Alistair is joining us from Washington, D.C. Alistair, a word on what, according to you, is the big takeaway of the joint statement?
Yes, indeed, Mario. We saw the 2 leaders meet, as we just heard from one of the guests there, that camaraderie still going strong, the chemistry still going strong. But I think one of the things, and the skeptic in me as a journalist, of course, coming through here, the big question on what will happen as far as those tariffs go. We saw the U.S. president earlier in the day, just a few hours before he met Prime Minister Modi, talking about looking at reciprocal tariffs. And this actually came up with the news conference later on, where one of the journalists asked President Trump, how is that going to play out? And he's asking this in front of Narendra Modi, who President Trump has often called India a tariff king, one of the biggest abusers of tariffs. And it was interesting to see President Trump's reaction there or response there, he didn't hold back. He actually said that, yes, India is a culprit. India actually needs to do something about it. India has the highest tariff nation, is the highest tariff nation in the world. And he said, well, I don't blame them. We're going to have to charge them the same, meaning that whatever India slaps onto U.S. goods imported into India, whatever tariffs that we have on them, Donald Trump says, well, expect the same from us as well for your goods that come here. Now, that doesn't mean that the two sides are far off, that we're going to see a tit-for-tat kind of arrangement, because it could well be that in the coming months, which we've heard several people talk about, source-based information, various experts also talking about, that India and the United States could potentially hammer out some kind of bilateral trade deal which kind of lessens the impact or the pain from these tit-for-tat tariffs. Now, important to mention, these reciprocal tariffs that Donald Trump talked about earlier in the day, it's a plan that he wants implemented. So it's the Commerce Department that's going to study it, look at which nations are some of the biggest culprits, and then come back to Donald Trump with their proposal, I think on April 1st, and then Donald Trump will have to take a call on that.
All right. We will come back to you in just a bit, Alistair. Let's bring in Raymond Vickery. Raymond Vickery, here is, the final statement, or the final sentence, which was said by President Trump was, a relationship with India and Prime Minister has never been better. So when for the skeptics, there was a lot of concern whether it will be a relationship of continuity or some kind of upheaval is waiting to happen here. What appeared certainly today was that the leaders looked at points of convergences such as defense framework, technology, which is very critical, rather than points where there are a lot of concerns, particularly to do with H-1B visa framework and also the immigration issue.
Well, thanks very much for having me. You're absolutely right. What we have here is continuity. Every president, beginning with Bill Clinton, has left the U.S.-India relationship stronger than it was before, and that includes President Biden, who was all in, who elevated the Quad, if you will, Japan, Australia, India, and the U.S. to the leaders level, had a successful G20. The corridor that we're talking about was actually announced under Biden. Now, I would hope that, and it seems that President Trump will take this relationship to an even higher level, and that is certainly a bipartisan issue in this United States, Republicans and Democrats. But what underlies it all are values, values that the United States and India hold as the two greatest democracies in the world. And we have to see that democracy is enhanced and goes forward, the rule of law, the respect for minority, human rights, all of those things. They're not just make-weights, they actually underlie the whole relationship. Now, when it comes to tariffs, and I was Assistant Secretary of Commerce at one time, tariffs can be used both as leverage and actually for economic purposes. In my judgment, what's going on here in regard to tariffs is basically a leverage kind of situation. You saw that Cannes was essentially kicked down the road in regard to Canada and Mexico and now India. There is said to be a plan in the works which is going to provide for a reciprocal kind of arrangement. One thing is you have to realize that if you're going to go bilaterally reciprocal, the WTO, the World Trade Organization, and most favored nation principle, that is, you give the lowest tariff you have to everybody in the world, that's all out the window. And how it would actually work, nobody knows. But there is some leverage here to be gained, and it seems to me that President Trump will, as is his wont, hold it up as great victories. And indeed, India, and for its own interest, is now considering opening up further to the world. In fact, it was the opening in the early 90s which moved India and the U.S. from being estranged democracies to being partners now. And hopefully in the future, we may even become allies. Because there is no issue in the world that can't be helped by further cooperation between the India and the U.S. And to look at this as two different things, economic and then political or security, is not correct. They go hand in hand. They must go forward together if you're going to have a strong relationship. I was very much encouraged today by the president's talks about the bringing peace to the world. Injecting the nuclear sword which hangs over us all. I think great things may come from that, but it's going to require a lot of heavy lifting. It's not just giving bear hugs. Prime Minister Modi is a great politician. He's got a hug for Putin. He's got a hug for Trump. And Zelensky across the board, which is all very good, but it takes a lot more than that. And where the rubber meets the road, literally, is going to be on economic matters and then moving over into security matters, in my estimation.
Okay, Dr. Benkin, let's take that thread forward a little. Particularly with regards to what President Trump spoke about Prime Minister Modi. He said that Mr. Modi is a better and a tougher negotiator than me. Of course, he understands that when it comes to tariffs, Prime Minister Modi has put India also as his priority. The question is that can the two leaders come at some kind of middle ground on the issue of tariff? Because, if it is about tariffs, then U.S. is going ahead and going for this reciprocal tariffs with all trading partners, not just India, all trading nations.
Yes, well, first of all, thank you for having me on. And clearly, anyone who's listening could tell this was a real love fest. A love fest between Donald Trump and Narendra Modi, a love fest between the United States and India. And my own personal opinion is the world really needs that and needs that badly. I agreed with a lot of what my two predecessors here said, but I really don't think that the U.S.-India relationship was where it should be at the end of the Biden administration. I was encouraged by so many things. I mean, I'm reading the list of agreements, and they're hitting all the notes they should. I was encouraged, first of all, that during the previous administration, there was so much thrown at India and at NAMO about religious minorities, and that was absent in this. And I think because it's really a scurrilous charge and not applicable, I found that very encouraging, and it was an indication of the nature of that relationship. Secondly, again, we could go, I'm still trying to go through all the things they agreed on, which was incredible. And I do agree with my predecessor about the fact that they all kind of hang together. They make sense as a package. I was very interested that the U.S. had agreed to sell India F-35 fighter jets. We don't do that with a lot of countries. And the fact that India will be purchasing F-35s indicates the importance to the United States of India's geopolitical role in the world and the importance of India being able to stop the expansion of China in a westward direction. That would free up the United States to work with its allies too in the Far East, like the Philippines, Japan, so that there's no expansion by China in the eastward direction. The corridor that they announced is a real it's a real stake in the heart to those who favor China's Belt and Road project. Same sort of idea, except I think we see with the United States and India These are two great countries that are going to make sure this happens. China is often making these deals with countries that don't have the ability to do this, so they in fact can take charge. So I mean, this was an incredible meeting. I've watched a lot of meetings among world leaders, and this was one of the most cooperative, and I believe one of the most consequential. Certainly, President Trump earlier today set the stage for the whole tariff issue by issuing his proclamation about reciprocal tariffs. So the two men had a baseline to start with. If one puts a tariff 5% on, the other put a tariff 5% on, and all the way down the line. Now, obviously, I don't want to simplify the impact, the differential economic impacts, and how the two countries will negotiate, but certainly we saw today that both countries see the importance of working with one another very closely, and being able to overcome any of those thorny issues that might derail that cooperation. It was extremely encouraging.
Yes, Dr. Benkin, one may also say that there could be this reading of this entire meeting, Matt, that the two leaders decided to address issues which are vexed issues or points of tensions head on, be it the issue of tariffs. They spoke about it with great degree of transparency. They also addressed the concerns regarding illegal immigration, and the entire deportation, which the question was asked to Prime Minister Modi, and he expressed his views rather openly. So this is how I would be seeing this, that beyond the love fest, as Dr. Benkin put it, there was this addressing of issues head on.
I might also add that I spent a lot of time on the Indian borders with Bangladesh, Nepal, and Pakistan, and clearly, I mean, India has the same problem, or not the same, exactly the same, but India has a very similar problem with illegal migration as the United States does. And as with the United States, so many of those migrants crossing the border illegally aren't coming to India with positive ideas of what they're going to do, and in fact might be coming with malevolent ideas. Not all, obviously, but just same thing with the United States. And I think both leaders recognize that there's a real similarity, and they can share the lessons that they've each learned, that the two great countries have learned.
Okay.
I would add
Matt?
real quickly. I would like to add. I think real quickly. What you saw here is, I think that both leaders realized that they would get more done by not posturing and by actually agreeing to work together to make some deals, which is, I mean, Donald Trump obviously is known for it, but I think it's in both countries' best interests. And I think that Prime Minister Modi clearly realizes that India's geostrategic location is of great importance, not only for the United States, but for most of the free world. And so he has a strong hand to play. And I think that Donald Trump believes that he does too. And when both sides have good hands, in this case, they want to work together to make both hands even stronger. And I think that it will be beneficial for both countries. And what you saw today is a model that Trump certainly wants to try to impose or make happen with other world leader meetings. It's going to be a very high bar to clear based on the meeting today with Prime Minister Modi.
So would you say that in a way this meeting has set the bar really high?
Absolutely, yes. I think that if this is the yardstick by which with other meetings with world leaders are measured, either the other world leaders are going to have to come to the table and offer Donald Trump a lot, or they're certainly going to have to try to foster a warm relationship, because this was a relationship that clearly was built before this meeting ever happened, and it will only get stronger during the next 4 years of the Trump administration.
I tend to agree with you completely, Matt, that there was a lot of groundwork which had gone into this meeting, what appeared, a couple of hours ago. And the two leaders did get their optics right, but they also got the big messaging right in terms of economic corridor, when it came to trust, technology, and other critical areas. So Raymond Vickery, let's talk about in terms of the messaging and to both leaders addressing their domestic constituencies. They realize that for Donald Trump it is make America great again. Prime Minister Modi is saying make India great again. They understand the strong nationalist sentiments that they have to cater to.
Well, Prime Minister Modi is an expert politician. He knows how to handle Donald Trump. Donald Trump likes big crowds, so you take him to Gujarat and you show him hundreds of thousands of people. Donald Trump wants to know that his slogan is a great slogan. And so you say, yeah, that's our slogan too. We're going to do the same thing. So he is very expert in that. I would say that what you have to do is now put further meat on the bones. I think, let's take, for example, the corridor. The corridor wasn't announced today. It was announced at the G20. And this is picking up and taking it forward to a new and better level. That's all very great. But the idea that this great relationship between the U.S. and India is dependent upon only two people, no matter how good they are, is not right. And what we have to do is look at underlying values. We have to look at people-to-people conduct and how this really works. Let's take immigration. MAGA is split down the middle on H-1B visas. You have Steve Bannon saying that the jobs only ought to go to Americans. And then you have Elon Musk on the other side saying, no, it ought to come in. President Trump says, well, I agree with Musk, but maybe we'll have to revise what we're doing in that regard. So there's a lot of slippage between cup and lip. And that isn't to throw cold water on the relationship at all. It is the defining relationship of the 21st century in so many, many areas. And so we want to take it forward, and this is a good start for a new administration. And let's hope that it results in these two leaders, one, preserving democracy, human rights around the world, and at the same time builds peace and prosperity, which both sides are committed to.
All right, Dr. Benkin, final thoughts from you. A defining relationship, relationship of commonalities is what will be defined as. So according to you, the big headlines in the papers.
The big headline is that India and the United States are working together so that the bastions of democracy in this world will overcome the acts of authoritarianism that's trying to oppose it. The acts of authoritarian led by nations like China. Obviously, exactly how that happens is doing, but that's the big headline. And that's what this world needs. It needs India and the United States to stand up and unapologetically say, we're working together strategically, militarily, so that we can build democracy throughout the world. I'll mention one other thing. I'll try and be very quick. After 26/11, some people asked me, what should the United States do? And I was rather bothered when President Bush had sent Secretary Rice to ease tensions and urge restraint in South Asia. My response to people in Washington who said, well, what do you think the best course is? I said, and I could have said it to a lot of countries, is the most important thing we can do in the West is stop treating India like a pet. Well, I think we saw today that that's not happening. India certainly has arrived, and India certainly is playing a crucial role in the world order of the 21st century.
All right. Thank you so much for joining us, Matt Klink, Raymond Vickery, and Dr. Benkin this morning and sharing your views. That's all from me. In fact, let's listen in again to that joint statement of Donald Trump and Prime Minister Modi.
I'm thrilled to welcome the Prime Minister of India, my friend, Narendra Modi, back to the White House. We spent a lot of time here and a lot of time in India, and he's a very special man. Prime Minister, it is a pleasure to extend to you the same hospitality that you showed Melania and myself when we traveled to your beautiful country 5 years ago. It's hard to believe so long ago, and it seemed like yesterday. It was beautiful. We opened the cricket stadium, 129,000 seats, I think the largest stadium in the world, and it was an incredible period of time. There is truly a special bond between the United States and India, and the world's oldest democracy and the world's largest democracy, and I believe the world's largest country in terms of the numbers of people. And today the Prime Minister and I are announcing a framework to strengthen those ties even further economically, and the U.S.-India Compact for the 21st century is a historic initiative that will deepen every aspect of our partnership and our friendship. Starting this year, we'll be increasing military sales to India by many billions of dollars. We're also paving the way to ultimately provide India with the F-35 stealth fighters. In 2017, my administration revived and reinvigorated the Quad security partnership. In our meeting today, the Prime Minister and I reaffirmed that strong cooperation among the United States, India, Australia, and Japan. And it's crucial, really, to maintaining peace and prosperity, tranquility, even in the Indo-Pacific. In addition, the United States and India will be working together like never before to confront the threat of radical Islamic terrorism, a threat all over the world, actually. Today, I'm pleased to announce that my administration has approved the extradition of one of the plotters and one of the very evil people of the world, and having to do with the horrific 2008 Mumbai terrorist attack, to face justice in India. So he's going to be going back to India to face justice. As we deepen our defense partnership, we'll also strengthen our economic ties and bring greater fairness and reciprocity to our trading relationship. As a signal of good faith, Prime Minister Modi recently announced the reductions to India's unfair, very strong tariffs that limit U.S. access into the Indian market very strongly, and really it's a big problem, I must say. India imposes a 30 to 40 to 60 and even 70% tariff on so many of the goods, and in some cases far more than that. And as an example, a 70% tariff on U.S. cars going into India, which makes it pretty much impossible to sell those cars. Today, the U.S. Trade deficit with India is almost $100 billion, and Prime Minister Modi and I have agreed that we'll begin negotiations to address the long-running disparities that should have been taken care of over the last 4 years, but they didn't do that, in the U.S.-India trading relationship, with the goal of signing an agreement. And we want, we want a certain level playing field, which we really think we're entitled to, and he does also, in fairness. So we're going to work on that very hard, and we can make up the difference very easily with the deficit, with the sale of oil and gas, LNG, of which we have more than anybody in the world. The Prime Minister and I also reached an important agreement on energy that will restore the United States as a leading supplier of oil and gas to India. It will be hopefully their #1 supplier, and the groundbreaking development for U.S. nuclear industry. India is also reforming its laws to welcome U.S. nuclear technology, which is at the highest level, into the Indian market. This will bring safe, clean, and affordable electricity to millions of Indians and tens of billions of dollars to the U.S. civilian nuclear industry in India. And under the framework we are announcing today, the United States and India are also joining forces to ensure that artificial intelligence and other advanced technologies are developed by the two of the most, really true of the most advanced nations, intellectually and otherwise technologically. Anywhere in the world, there's nobody very much closer. We have an incredible relationship there, and this is where it seems to be heading. And artificial intelligence, a very complex subject, but it seems to be where people want to be and they want to go, and we're leading right now by a lot, but other people will try to catch us. I don't know if they're going to be able to. We're going to make it available. We're going to make tremendous amounts of electricity available. We're going to let the people that are buying the electricity make their own electric plants, electric generation plants. And we've never done this in our country, but we're going to get it done very quickly. Lee Zeldin and his group are going to get the approvals in very rapid form. And we're calling it a national emergency, and that's exactly what it is. So we're going to remain at the top of the AI, or artificial intelligence, I think, for a long time to come, and we're going to be working very closely with India and other countries on that. But right now, we're the leader by quite a bit. Finally, we agreed to work together to help build one of the greatest trade routes in all of history. It will run from India to Israel to Italy and onward to the United States, connecting our partners by ports, railways, and undersea cables, many, many undersea cables. It's a big development. It's a lot of money going to be spent, and we've already spent some, but we're going to be spending a lot more in order to stay advanced and stay the leader. I'm pleased to report that with today's announcements, the friendship between the United States and India is the strongest I believe it's ever been. I think our relationship is the best it's ever been between two leaders of the two countries, and it's an honor to say that. I'd like to now invite the Prime Minister to say a few words, and then we'll take some questions, and we appreciate you all being here. Thank you very much.
Your Excellency, राष्ट्रपति ट्रंप, दोनों देशों के डेलीगेट्स, मीडिया के साथियों, नमस्कार। सबसे पहले मैं मेरे प्रिय मित्र राष्ट्रपति ट्रंप को मेरे शानदार स्वागत और आतिथ्य सत्कार के लिए हार्दिक आभार व्यक्त करता हूं। राष्ट्रपति ट्रंप ने भारत और अमेरिका संबंधों को अपने नेतृत्व से संजोया है, जीवंत बनाया है। जिस उत्साह से उनकी पहली टर्म में हमने मिलकर काम किया, वही उमंग, वही ऊर्जा और वही प्रतिबद्धता मैंने आज भी महसूस की है। आज की चर्चाओं में उनके पहले टर्म में हमारी उपलब्धियों का संतोष और गहरे आपसी विश्वास का सेतु था। साथ ही नए लक्ष्यों को प्राप्त करने का संकल्प भी था। हम मानते हैं कि भारत और अमेरिका का साथ और सहयोग एक बेहतर विश्व को शेप कर सकता है। फ्रेंड्स, अमेरिका के लोग राष्ट्रपति ट्रंप के मोटो मेक अमेरिका ग्रेट अगेन यानी मागा से परिचित है। भारत के लोग भी विरासत और विकास की पटरी पर विकसित भारत 2047 के दृढ़ संकल्प को लेकर तेज गति शक्ति से विकास की ओर अग्रसर है। अमेरिका की भाषा में कहूं तो विकसित भारत का मतलब मेक इंडिया ग्रेट अगेन यानी मीगा। जब अमेरिका और भारत साथ मिलकर काम करते हैं यानी मागा, मागा प्लस मीगा तब बन जाता है मेगा पार्टनरशिप फॉर प्रॉस्पेरिटी। और यही मेगा स्पिरिट हमारे लक्ष्यों को नया स्केल और स्कोप देती है। फ्रेंड्स, आज हमने द्विपक्षीय व्यापार को 2030 तक 2 गुना से भी अधिक बढ़ाकर $500 बिलियन तक पहुंचाने का लक्ष्य निर्धारित किया है। हमारी टीमें एक पारस्परिक लाभकारी ट्रेड एग्रीमेंट को शीघ्र संपन्न करने पर काम करेगी। भारत की ऊर्जा सुरक्षा सुनिश्चित करने में हम ऑयल तथा गैस ट्रेड को बल देंगे। ऊर्जा इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर में निवेश भी बढ़ेगा। न्यूक्लियर एनर्जी क्षेत्र में हमने स्मॉल मॉड्यूलर रिएक्टर्स की दिशा में सहयोग बढ़ाने पर भी बात की। फ्रेंड्स, भारत की डिफेंस प्रिपेयर्डनेस में अमेरिका की महत्वपूर्ण भूमिका है। स्ट्रैटेजिक और ट्रस्टेड पार्टनर के नाते हम जॉइंट डेवलपमेंट, जॉइंट प्रोडक्शन और ट्रांसफर ऑफ टेक्नोलॉजी की दिशा में सक्रिय रूप से आगे बढ़ रहे हैं। आने वाले समय में भी नई टेक्नोलॉजी और इक्विपमेंट हमारी क्षमता बढ़ाएंगे। हमने ऑटोनोमस सिस्टम्स इंडस्ट्री अलायंस लॉन्च करने का निर्णय लिया है। अगले दशक के लिए डिफेंस कोऑपरेशन फ्रेमवर्क बनाया जाएगा। डिफेंस इंटरऑपरेबिलिटी, लॉजिस्टिक्स, रिपेयर और मेंटेनेंस भी इसके मुख्य भाग होंगे। फ्रेंड्स, 21वीं सदी टेक्नोलॉजी ड्रिवन सेंचुरी है। लोकतांत्रिक मूल्यों में विश्वास रखने वाले देशों के बीच टेक्नोलॉजी क्षेत्र में करीबी सहयोग पूरी मानवता को नई दिशा, शक्ति और अवसर दे सकता है। भारत और अमेरिका आर्टिफिशियल इंटेलिजेंस, सेमीकंडक्टर्स, क्वांटम, बायोटेक्नोलॉजी तथा टेक्नोलॉजीज में मिलकर काम करेंगे। आज हमने ट्रस्ट यानी ट्रांसफॉर्मिंग रिलेशनशिप यूटिलाइजिंग स्ट्रेटेजिक टेक्नोलॉजी, उस पर सहमति बनाई है। इसके अंतर्गत क्रिटिकल मिनरल, एडवांस मटेरियल और फार्मास्यूटिकल की मजबूत सप्लाई चेन्स बनाने पर बल दिया जाएगा। लिथियम और रेयर अर्थ जैसे स्ट्रेटेजिक मिनरल के लिए रिकवरी और प्रोसेसिंग इनिशिएटिव्स लॉन्च करने का भी निर्णय लिया है। स्पेस के क्षेत्र में अमेरिका से हमारा करीबी सहयोग रहा है। इसरो और नासा के आपसी सहयोग से बनाई निसार सैटेलाइट शीघ्र ही भारतीय लॉन्च व्हीकल पर अंतरिक्ष की उड़ान भरेगी। फ्रेंड्स, भारत और अमेरिका की साझेदारी लोकतंत्र और लोकतांत्रिक मूल्यों तथा व्यवस्थाओं को सशक्त बनाती है। इंडो पैसिफिक में शांति, स्थिरता और समृद्धि को बढ़ाने के लिए हम मिलकर काम करेंगे। इसमें क्वाड की विशेष भूमिका होगी। इस वक्त भारत में होने जा रही क्वाड समिट में हम पार्टनर देशों के साथ नए क्षेत्रों में सहयोग बढ़ाएंगे। आईमेक और I2U2 के तहत हम इकोनॉमिक कॉरिडोर और कनेक्टिविटी इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर पर मिलकर काम करेंगे। आतंकवाद के खिलाफ लड़ाई में भारत और अमेरिका दृढ़ता से साथ खड़े रहे हैं। हम सहमत हैं कि सीमा पार आतंकवाद के उन्मूलन के लिए ठोस कार्रवाई आवश्यक है और मैं राष्ट्रपति जी का आभारी हूं कि उन्होंने 2008 के जिसने भारत में नरसंहार किया था उस मुजरिम को अब भारत के हवाले करने का निर्णय किया है। भारत की अदालतें उचित कार्यवाही करेंगी। फ्रेंड्स, अमेरिका में रहने वाला भारतीय समुदाय हमारे संबंधों की महत्वपूर्ण कड़ी है। हमारे पीपल टू पीपल टाइज को और गहरा करने के लिए हम शीघ्र ही लॉस एंजलिस और बोस्टन में भारत के नए कॉन्सुलेट खोलेंगे। हमने अमेरिका की यूनिवर्सिटी और शिक्षा संस्थानों को भारत में ऑफशोर कैंपस खोलने के लिए निमंत्रण दिया है। राष्ट्रपति ट्रंप, आपकी मित्रता और भारत के लिए दृढ़ प्रतिबद्धता के लिए मैं आपका आभार व्यक्त करता हूं। भारत के लोग तो 2020 की आपकी यात्रा को आज भी याद करते हैं और उम्मीद करते हैं कि राष्ट्रपति ट्रंप एक बार फिर उनके पास आएंगे। 140 करोड़ भारतवासियों की ओर से मैं आपको भारत आने के लिए आमंत्रित करता हूं। बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद।
I've been reporting on all issues, big and small, from Andhra Pradesh, Telangana, rest of South India, bringing you all the action, all that you need to know, all that you want to know.
The energy of Maximum City is infectious. I bring in that energy in our news coverage from financial capital Mumbai.
Covering from the southernmost part of India over the last 23 years, I bring in-depth and 360-degree coverage from the Dravidian heartland.
The land of Mishti is also known for its bitter politics. I have seen much water flow under the Howrah Bridge, covering Bengal in all its vivid colors.
This week on India Ascends,
We decode the ins and outs of the historic PM Modi-President Trump meet. Mumbai to Marseille, why IMEC is poised to bring the global north and south together, and how BrahMos missile is pushing India to the forefront of military innovation and reshaping global defense dynamics.
all this and more only on India Ascends with me, Gauri Dwivedi, at these timings on the NDTV network.
Big budget day. Big newsmakers on NDTV. Top ministers and opposition leaders.
ये by the people, of the people and for the people budget.
It is a fulfilling budget.
This is a development budget.
It's one of the finest budgets I've ever seen.
More than a bold move, it is a clever move.
NDTV, always the first choice of newsmakers. NDTV keeps you ahead.
There is a growing realization across the global capitals that this is a relationship which is fast moving beyond the pale of bilateralism into truly a force for global good.
Looking ahead to Prime Minister Modi's visit here to Washington, D.C. as he meets with President Donald Trump.
I do think, though, there are real opportunities for the U.S. and India to work together.
I think you look at both President Trump and Prime Minister Modi as leaders that really want to bring an end to wars, and particularly the war in Ukraine.
It's a short visit, but it's a visit of consequence. This is Nikunj Garg reporting for NDTV from Washington, D.C.
Mahakumbh, the festival of faith, the world's biggest spiritual festival.
Good morning. You're watching NDTV's special broadcast of Prime Minister Modi's crucial bilateral with US President Donald Trump. In fact, we just heard the joint address completing a short while back. There are lots of talking points, several key takeaways. We'll get you all those updates with our ground reporters in the United States, as well as a special panel of experts that we have lined up. But first, let's take a look at headlines at top of 6 a.m. PM Modi at White House. There's Dosti on display. Modi 3.0 and Trump 2.0 equals to India-US ties hitting the top gear. President Trump says ties with India and the Prime Minister have never been better. He also goes on to add that Prime Minister Modi is a great leader.
A really fantastic job. A great leader. Great leader.
Trump and Modi on Ukraine-Russia war. President Trump says there's no peace talks yet. Prime Minister Modi adds on the Russia-Ukraine war that India has not been neutral. In fact, it's always been on the side of peace. Prime Minister Modi also appreciates President Trump's peace efforts. Tough talk on trade. President Trump says that the US and India will ink a great trade deal, and goes on to add that doing business in India is tough, but they don't blame India for high tariffs.
Oh, he's a much tougher negotiator than me, and he's a much better negotiator than me. There's not even a contest.
Another big one. President Trump clears Tahavur Rana's extradition. Prime Minister Modi says he's grateful to Trump for extradition of the 2611 plotter. Donald Trump also announces plans for reciprocal tariffs. This is a plan at this stage which has to be executed over a period of time. US pushes for more defense deals with India. Donald Trump offers F-35 fighter jets to India. Prime Minister Modi and President Trump have just completed their joint address following the key bilateral meeting held in Washington, D.C. There were lots of talking points which have come out of it. On a question about tariffs and possible trade deals between India and the U.S., President Trump said that Prime Minister Modi is a great leader, adding that we are going to make some wonderful trade deals for India and the U.S. Crucially, President Trump has also hinted at potential deals with India in terms of India buying crude oil and LNG from the U.S. Another big one, President Trump has cleared the extradition of 2611 plotter Tahavur Rana. The U.S. President has also said that the United States will sell F-35 fighter jets to India, which would join the elite club of countries with the state-of-the-art stealth planes. Remember, this was the first bilateral meeting between India and the United States since Trump took over as the U.S. President for the second time just 3 weeks ago. President Trump also added that relationship with India and Prime Minister Modi has never been better. In fact, let's take a look at some of the excerpts coming out from their joint address.
हम मानते हैं कि भारत और अमेरिका का साथ और सहयोग एक बेहतर विश्व को शेप कर सकता है। फ्रेंड्स, अमेरिका के लोग राष्ट्रपति ट्रंप के मोटो मेक अमेरिका ग्रेट अगेन यानी मागा से परिचित है। भारत के लोग भी विरासत और विकास की पटरी पर विकसित भारत 2047 के दृढ़ संकल्प को लेकर तेज गति शक्ति से विकास की ओर अग्रसर है। अमेरिका की भाषा में कहूं तो विकसित भारत का मतलब मेक इंडिया ग्रेट अगेन, यानी मिगा। जब अमेरिका और भारत साथ मिलकर काम करते हैं, यानी मागा, मागा प्लस मिगा, तब बन जाता है मेगा पार्टनरशिप फॉर प्रॉस्पेरिटी। और यही मेगा स्पिरिट हमारे लक्ष्यों को नया स्केल और स्कोप देती है।
The United States and India will be working together like never before to confront the threat of radical Islamic terrorism, a threat all over the world, actually. Today, I'm pleased to announce that my administration has approved the extradition of one of the plotters and one of the very evil people of the world, and having to do with the horrific 2008 Mumbai terrorist attack, to face justice in India. So he's going to be going back to India to face justice. We're giving a very violent man, it seems to me. I mean, I don't know that he's been convicted yet or will be, but let's assume he's a pretty violent person. We're giving him back to India immediately, and there are more to follow because we have quite a few requests. So we work with India on crime, and we want to make it good for India, and it's very important. So that kind of a relationship is very important to us.
आप जानते हैं, मैं रशिया और यूक्रेन दोनों से लगातार संपर्क में रहा हूं। मैं स्वयं भी दोनों देश की मुलाकात कर चुका हूं। बहुत से लोगों का एक भ्रम है कि भारत न्यूट्रल है। मैं साफ करना चाहता हूं, भारत न्यूट्रल नहीं है। हमारा अपना एक पक्ष है, और हमारा पक्ष है शांति, पीस। और मैंने इसी एक हमारे सिद्धांत को लेकर के राष्ट्रपति पुतिन की हाजिरी में मीडिया के सामने स्पष्ट रूप से कहा था कि युद्ध का समय नहीं है। और आज भी मेरा कन्विक्शन है कि युद्ध के मैदान में समस्याओं के समाधान नहीं निकलते हैं, अल्टीमेटली वार्ता के टेबल पर ही होते हैं। और भारत का लगातार प्रयास रहा है कि दोनों लोग जिसमें मौजूद हो वैसे फोरम में बातचीत होगी, तब कोई रास्ता निकलेगा। राष्ट्रपति ट्रंप जो प्रयास कर रहे हैं, मैं उनका स्वागत करता हूं, समर्थन करता हूं, और मैं चाहता हूं कि राष्ट्रपति ट्रंप हो सके उतना जल्दी सफल हो, ताकि दुनिया में शांति के रास्ते खुले।
Russia has gotten themselves into something that I think they wish they didn't. If I were president, it would not have happened. Absolutely would not have happened. And it didn't happen for 4 years. If you look at what has taken place under President Bush, they lost a lot. Under President Obama, they lost Crimea. Under Biden, it looks like they could lose the whole thing. Under Trump, they lost nothing. Ukraine lost nothing. They didn't give up anything. And you take a look at the other 3 presidents surrounding me, they gave up a lot. I think that when you look at Ukraine and when you look at the mess that they're in, it's got to be ended and it's got to be stopped. Now, Russia's taken over a pretty big chunk of territory, and they also have said from day one, long before President Putin, they've said they cannot have Ukraine be in NATO. They said that very strongly. I actually think that that was the thing that caused the start of the war. And Biden said it, and Zelensky said it. And I think that was one of the reasons, one of the starts of the war. But from long before Putin, they said you cannot have Ukraine going in any way into NATO. And I start from that standpoint. I think everybody knew that. Now, if a better deal can be negotiated, if they're able to make a deal where they can do that, that's fine with me. I really don't care. I want that bloodshed to stop. I don't want to see, we have an ocean between us and the site we're talking about, the site of death. We're calling it the fields of death. We have a big ocean in between us. This is more important for Europe. We shouldn't be in. They have to equalize, and they're going to have to do it fast, but they have to equalize. But as far as the negotiation, it's too early to say what's going to happen. Maybe Russia will give up a lot. Maybe they won't. And it's all dependent on what is going to happen. The negotiation really hasn't started. But I will say, as far as NATO is concerned, from many years before President Putin, I will tell you that I've heard that Russia would never accept that. And I think Ukraine knew that, because Ukraine wasn't in and never requested to be in until more recently. So that's the way it is. And I think that's the way it's going to have to be.
President Trump there talking about the Russia-Ukraine war, discussing all the key takeaways and what we saw over the past few hours playing out in Washington, D.C. I am being joined on the show now by Angela Chitkara, founder and CEO of US-India Corridor, and also Major General Sanjay Soy, Defense and International Affairs expert. Thank you to both of you for joining me so early this morning. Angela, coming to you first, I just want to start by asking both of you what have been your key takeaways or highlights from this meeting and the joint address.
Okay, thank you, and good morning to you. Good morning. So there was a lot to take in. And I think there was a lot to clarify here. So beginning with the tariffs, right? So there was no, President Trump did not impose tariffs, right? That did not go into effect today. It was on NDTV, in fact. It was your reporter who made that clarification on site, that it was a 6-month study to assess tariffs. That's one. The increased military sales, fine. But this world has become interdependent. The relationship between U.S. and India is an interdependent one. That means that whatever happens in the U.S. will affect India. Whatever happens in India will affect the U.S. and the rest of the world. Think about even this week, we had, you'd be hard pressed not to hear about India or not to come across a multinational that hasn't has no exposure to India. India has been mentioned at the AI summit. They were, sponsoring it, co-sponsoring. The Munich Security Council summit took place. There was concern there. And there was even concern at the Wolf Research conference in New York City in the automotive industry, regarding semiconductors. So, I think we can't assess tariffs on their own. We have to actually assess them, each and every one carefully. But what we have to recognize is that the services industry is a concern. We also have to recognize that India, foreign institutional investors, for example, hold $800 billion in Indian equities, right? So the focus should be on stability. We've entered the 4th industrial revolution, so it's not just about the military, but it's interdependence. A sluggish global economy may reduce the demand potentially for services such as IT, consulting, and financial services, which is significant. And then if we think about H-1B visas, which has come up in conversations, now it's part of the national, discussion in the United States. Prior, the only time that I would hear about H-1B visas is from, my students in the classroom, because they knew everything about the visas, because that was their number one priority. And today, you have over 300,000 students coming from India every year. So the H-1B visa needs to be increased. There's been an acknowledgement of that. And we need to keep up with the times. The times are changing. And so there's more FDI that's coming into the US from India, and it's continuing to grow in the US. So as I think about these discussions, I'm thinking about it conceptually. India is defining itself independently and with stakeholders in a multipolar world.
That's right. Those are the initial assessments, of course. There, Major General Sanjay Soy, your thoughts?
Absolutely. I would say that since, yesterday morning in US, things are totally different. And what few things we noticed during the joint address and during the press conference is the trust in each other. Both of them trust each other. Both of them faith. Both of them are go-getters. Both of them are nationalists. They both want, Trump wants to make America great. Modi wants to make India great. And both are deal makers. Now, and Trump also has mentioned that Modi is tougher deal maker than me. So they understand the strength of each other. They understand the bonhomie. They understand the positive vibes which each other emanate. That has made a lot of difference. And yes, the number of issues, while Trump has made what Chitkara rightly said, that they have gone for the study of terrorists. And terrorists is one issue. Probably US has been, Trump right from the beginning has been very chary, and he is a man in a hurry. He wants to get the thing done. Both of them, Modi and Trump, are go-getters. So few deals which I look at it are one of the major achievement was, I think announcement was return of Thakur Rana, because Trump mentioned that both countries, India is affected by Islamic radicalism, and similar is the case with the US. So return of Thakur Rana will be a major achievement. And yes, we have also given list of some Khalistani terrorists also. So that will also create a positive environment for return of those Khalistani elements. However, knowing the US, there would be some legal formalities which have to be done, which may take time. But yes, the process has begun, the thought process has begun. And he has also given hint of giving F-35s, which is they're not they're quite restrictive about it, and they are this is a fifth generation fighter aircraft, the latest one in their arsenal, and they're not given to some of the NATO countries also. So if they're giving to India or thinking of giving to India, and like earlier engines for Tejas and other defense systems, whether it is the M22 guns or air defense or drones, that shows the strategic importance of India in the overall scheme of things in how the US look at the world. And India being a good strategic partner, we are the one who can assist the US, or we can partner with US, not assist. I would say we are partnering with US, whether in the terms of Quad or whether in terms of I2U2, or helping in or ensuring the free movement in Indo-Pacific region, and also are able to jointly counter the expansionist thinking of China. So I would say that yes, things have become very, very positive. Lot of things will happen, and I think both it will be a win-win situation for both. The Trump will be able to say that yes, I'm I'm still going ahead with the tariffs. India is ready to buy the energy. They are signing deals for purchase of energy, and India will be benefited if we are getting cheaper energy. There's nothing wrong in it. Why we bought from Russia in spite of the sanctions against Russia. We bought from Iran. We are buying from Middle East. So there's nothing wrong. We will take our national interest first, and yes, we will buy. So it is a win-win situation. Both we will get the latest technology from India, from the US. India will get the latest technology, both in the defense sector. That will also help in making Atmanirbhar, because nobody can do everything on its own. Technology transfer, the engines, some parts have to come from outside, and that is how jointly these are done. I think very, very positive meeting. The vibes are very, very positive, and a lot of things will happen in the times to come.
Right.
And one more thing I thought I will add that imagine the meeting at every level. Jaishankar is meeting, Ajit Doval is meeting, Prime Minister is meeting, and who is of the US administration is meeting Prime Minister. That shows the importance of visit of Prime Minister given by the US administration. Yeah.
Right, that clearly underscores the importance. Hold your thoughts. We'll, of course, discuss more in detail some of the aspects coming out from the bilateral. But I believe I'm also joined by my colleague Alistair D'Souza, who's joining us from Washington, D.C. this morning. For him, of course, the evening. Alistair, so we were just discussing some of the key takeaways from the bilateral, but you were there on the ground. You were, of course, witness to what the interactions that took place between Prime Minister Modi and President Trump. According to you, what do you think missed the cameras? What do you think escaped the cameras that we should know of?
Yeah, indeed. You can see that I'm dressed up all warmly here. It's absolutely freezing, but I can tell you in that room between Narendra Modi and Donald Trump, the temperature there extremely warm and cordial. The two men, as expected, continued their relationship on a great footing here that we saw in the last hour or so. It was really a time to celebrate the wins between the two men. So we saw that hug between Donald Trump and Prime Minister Modi. Some of the wins, there were lots to talk about. There was President Trump offering India these F-35 sleuth military jets, something that it doesn't do with all countries. So that was one of the key highlights that we heard in that briefing between the two leaders. Also buying more energy for use, for example, LNG. There's going to be cooperation on AI as well and counter-terrorism as well. Now, there were some lighter moments that we looked at where one of the reporters asked President Trump who between them is the toughest negotiator, which one is tougher. And you could see a smile come onto Donald Trump's face, and he turns around and says that it's Narendra Modi who's the tougher negotiator. Now, that said, there are certain issues that have been left unresolved, and one of them is tariffs. Big question still on how this is going to play out, because earlier in the day, Donald Trump talked about these tit-for-tat reciprocal tariffs. So if one country had a tariff of, say, 5% on a good, well, America would go ahead and slap the same amount on that country as well. So what's going to happen to that front as far as America and India goes? So that remains to be seen if we're going to see any kind of bilateral arrangement between the two sides. That was one of the unresolved issues that was not entirely addressed. Now, the other thing was the illegal deportees or illegal migrants who've been deported to India from the United States, those undocumented migrants. We've seen in India those pictures that came through of many of them sent on an aircraft, 104 of them shackled, their hands and their legs. Well, that was one of the questions that was put to Prime Minister Narendra Modi. That was brought up, and Narendra Modi really decided to talk about how one should be clamping down on the root cause of this problem, which is also tackling with America the problem of what he called the ecosystem of human traffickers. So clearly no mention of whether we're going to continue to see those military planes bringing more Indians shackled and tied, or shackled with chains as far as their hands and their feet are concerned. So, of course, India not disputing the fact that these individuals who've broken American law by coming here illegally should be sent back. The question, though, is the outrage over how they've been sent back. So one must wait and see how in the coming months or weeks, how that would potentially play out.
Right. Alistair, quickly before we let you go, what are the next steps now for both nations following this bilateral? We also saw Prime Minister having some key meetings ahead of this bilateral with Elon Musk specifically. So what do you think are the next steps now which could emanate from these meetings?
Right, indeed, with any of these meetings, you have the high-ranking officials coming together, as we've seen, lots of broad statements issued. We'll get We'll get to more detail in the next coming days, but then really begins the hard work, doesn't it, for officials at the lower rung to make sure that they are able to progress in order to deliver on all those things that have been talked about, whether it's LNG or AI or those defense deals. How do you go ahead and make sure all of that comes together cohesively? So that's going to be how things play out in the next couple of weeks and months.
Right, Alistair D'Souza there joining us from Washington, D.C. Thank you so much for joining us on the broadcast at the moment. Going back to my guest now, Angela, as Alistair there was also referring to it, that, there are some bits, of course, which still remain in the grey area. As far as reciprocal tariffs are concerned, President Trump has announced a study, a 6-month study to look into it, how to execute it, implement it. He's, of course, very bullish on that front. But at the moment, do you feel that India has dodged a bullet in a sense?
I don't want to comment on that. I mean, I just for now, let's just enjoy the moment. Let's just enjoy it and do our due diligence in ensuring that that whatever the outcome is, that it's a fair and equitable one. I think that we are again global cooperation is needed. There's an interdependence. There's increasing FDI by Indian companies here in the U.S. And at the end of the day, it affects people, everyday people in our respective countries and around the world. And we're tackling problems like establishing so it's cybersecurity, and at the AI summit, for example, India was laying the groundwork for AI governance. And so I think the world, can take lessons from India in terms of how, public-private partnerships work. So in India, for example, with the digital, public, the infrastructure, that has addressed problems, in terms of accessing education. And so I think, the U.S. can learn from that. And also what, my fellow panelist had said about, the collaboration that's taking place in different sectors.
Right. Major General Sanjay Soy, returning to you now, the personal rapport, the personal chemistry that we have been talking about for the past few days between Prime Minister Modi and President Trump was clear once again. In fact, President Trump was very generous with his compliments, also saying, although Alistair said it was on a lighter note, but calling Prime Minister Modi a great negotiator, a better negotiator than him, also saying that ties or relations with India and the US have in fact never been better. So do you think in a way the partnership between the two countries has been elevated to the next level?
There's no doubt. In fact, a few things, like imagine immediately after taking over, in spite of his hectic schedule, and when we are getting the things done on the one side, there's the Middle East, there's the Russia-Ukraine war going on, and he's meeting Prime Minister Modi, which shows the importance US is giving and to India, because India plays a very, very strategic role, and both are great strategic partners. Our business has grown, our import on defense from US has grown. We are no more only dependent on Russia. We are buying from Europe, we are buying from America, we are buying from Russia also. And so with this Trump, right from beginning, I mean, he's a man in a hurry and he's a go-getter. And one a good thing about with the